Items can be very, very useful in helping us to organize our more complex designs, as well as to perform some bulk operations, such as selecting a whole number of bodies and maybe changing all the colors of all those bodies, or translating a number of bodies all at the same time, or performing really any bulk operations. So first, let's gain a better understanding of multiple bodies and what exactly bodies and items are. So looking at our original bracket design here, remember how I designed this was actually by creating these three cylinders individually, and then creating this base portion of my bracket. Now notice as I do a double tap on a specific portion of this body, notice it's only highlighting that one specific portion of this design. And that's actually because this cylindrical portion currently is its own body. Then this portion is another body, this portion a body, and this portion a body. Although it might look like this entire design is just one body, as all the bodies seem to be touching, it looks like in fact this is currently 4 unique bodies. And we'll learn more about how multi-body design can be useful later on. So in this particular case, we might actually want all of these 4 bodies to just be a single body, so we'd probably union this design at the end to make it all one body, but we'll learn more about union later on. What's important here is that if I tap on my items icon down here, I can see all of the items of this particular design. It looks like I have a number of bodies, body 1, body 2, body 3, body 4. Also looks like I have a number of sketches as well, because of course we used sketches to create these bodies. So this is just useful to note. As we create our particular designs, a number of bodies will be created. And by default, they're going to come in with the names body 1, body 2, and so on. Now, as we get into more and more complex designs, bodies and items will become more and more useful to us, especially when working with multi-body designs, or what we might call assemblies, or products that might contain multiple bodies. So here is another somewhat simple example. Let's say we have this coffee table here. Looks like it is a assembly or product containing 3 unique bodies. Again, if I jump into my items down below, I see that by default we have created body 1, body 2, and body 3. And as we can see, just tapping to select these bodies will select or highlight the body. Also notice it shows me a number of sketches as well, but we do have some item filters up at the top here. So currently I'm looking at all items, but if I'd like, I could filter down to just bodies, just sketches, and so on. In this case, let's say I'm only worried about the bodies, so I'll tap to filter down to only bodies here. And now let's take a look at some of the useful things we get within our items. For one, of course, just tapping to select on the body will highlight that body. Notice I also have this eye icon here, and I can tap on that eye icon to hide or show any particular body as well. Next, if I slide a particular body to the left here, I get a few additional options. First, I can zoom to that particular body. I can also rename a body, as the name body01 might not be so useful to me, so maybe I'll change that to small step, for example. And finally, of course, I could delete that body as well, but in this case I don't want to delete, I want to keep this body. But maybe I'll do something similar for the rest of my bodies as well. So body 2 seems to be my tabletop, so maybe I'll rename to just be tabletop. And finally, body 3 seems to be my frame, so maybe I'll rename this to be metal frame. Now what's also very, very useful about using my items here is I can group particular bodies or items into folders. So down below I have the folder option to add some folder. So I'm going to add a folder here. It works very similarly, so right now it's called folder 01, but maybe I want to slide to the right and rename this as well to maybe wood. So I'll put all my wood objects within that folder. Maybe I'll create one more folder and rename this folder to be called metal, where I'll put all the metal components or bodies within that folder. Now to move a body or item into a folder, very simple process. I can just tap to select whatever I'd like and just tap and drag to move it around. In this case, I want to move it into my metal folder. Now I'm looking only at the bodies within my metal folder. I can tap the back button to jump to all of my bodies and all of my folders. And same idea for wood. So I could move each of these components individually into my wood folder. I can also select multiple objects since both of these bodies should be placed into my wood folder. And again, I can tap and drag to move both bodies at the same time into my wood folder. So now I've essentially grouped like objects or bodies into a specific folder, which of course is useful because now I could hide an entire folder or perform really any tools on a particular body or an entire folder of multiple bodies. A few other handy things within items here. Let's jump back into my wood folder here. So just tap that arrow to jump into my wood folder. And let's say if I ever wanted to remove a body from a folder now, I can do that as well. To do that, again, make sure I've selected all the bodies I'd like to remove. Tap and hold down to move them around. In this case, bring them up back to that wood folder. Notice it jumps me back to my original bodies area, and now I can place it really anywhere. I'll place it down below here, maybe outside of my folders. And now notice both of these bodies have been removed from that wood folder, and now that wood folder is empty. Maybe I don't want that folder at all anymore, so of course I can slide and delete to remove that folder completely. One other option, in addition to dragging my bodies into a particular folder, I can also select multiple items, and then if I were to create a new folder down here, notice it has automatically pulled whatever bodies I had selected into that new folder. And again, even that coffee table design was a fairly simple project, but here we can see a nightstand design that is quite a bit more complex project or assembly that looks like it has a number of different bodies to create this final product. So here's where using items and folders can really become very, very useful to help organize your designs. So now if I take a look at my items, notice I have a number of different folders for the different portions of this assembly or design. I can even have folders within folders and so on. And again, why this is so useful, let's say I have a number of hardware components in here, such as screws and brackets and nuts and bolts and so on. To manually select each of those and possibly change the color, for example, would be a fairly tedious process. I'd have to try to double tap to select each component individually for all the brackets, all of the nuts and bolts and so on, and maybe change the color as a sample example. Whereas if I'm using items and folders, I could perhaps grab all of the brackets and screws very, very quickly here and just do something simple like change the color, for example. And now I've just changed all the brackets and screws to be some pink color as just a simple example there. So as we can see, as we get into more and more complex designs, especially designs that have multiple bodies or multiple components within them, using these items and folders to help organize our design becomes very, very useful to us.